What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be showing you how we can build an Airbnb client using Bubble and another tool that you can basically combine the two and create a really high quality application that's going to be useful to a lot of people. And so this is going to be a full tutorial. I'm going to be showing you how to combine different apps using the APIs and a couple of other things. All right. So here I am in my Bubble dashboard, and the app that we're looking at is this app right here. And the idea is this app is targeted at tourists who are interested in visiting Portugal. And so I personally like Portugal, and that is why I decided to create an app targeted at Portugal. Obviously, you can target it to pretty much any other city or country in the world. And so the idea here is that we are basically kind of like a portal for Portugal, and it says life in Portugal, learn everything you need to know about Portugal. And the idea is they'll be able to type a city, and they're going to be able to see listings, Airbnb listings, right on the website, and they can basically click on the link and they can book it on Airbnb. They're going to be transferred to Airbnb, and then they can book it from there. And obviously, this site isn't just about listings. It's going to have a lot of other things. It might have hotels, it might have apartments, it might have some other data, maybe some forums, and here and there, etc., etc. This is just the beginning. And so what we have here in this app is we have this main screen, and we have an API connection that we are going to be connecting to another site. Now, we're not connecting to Airbnb directly in this example. We're basically using another service called Apify in order to get data from Airbnb. And I decided to use this approach because I wanted to learn more about how Apify works, because this is a very, very powerful platform, because it allows us basically to extract data from any website. And so, yes, some sites offer you direct API access, but some sites do not. And so in that case, you can use a tool like Apify to basically get the data that you need. And then you can basically connect Apify to Bubble, and that way you can basically capture the data that Apify is giving you. And so let's start with Apify first. I'm going to show you how I basically configured Apify, and then I'm going to show you how I basically configured the Bubble app to pull data from Apify, okay? And so when you sign up to Apify, Apify gives you like a free trial, generous free trial that allows you to use a certain amount of CPU compute. And it basically, and during the free trial, you are allowed to make certain calls within a certain limit. And so it's a fairly generous trial, in the sense that you can have a good sense of how the app works, and you can basically try it out and try different things. And so let me go to the dashboard. Here's my dashboard in this app. And the way this works is that you have these various actors here, right? And actors are no more than pieces of code that basically describe how to get data from a certain app, or maybe how to do something else. And so, for instance, I have my actors, I have an API, and we also have a store, an Apify store, where you can find a ready-made actor for your web scraping or an automation project, okay? And so we have a web scraper, we have Facebook pages scraper, Google search results, Instagram. There's a lot of sophisticated tools that basically allow you to get data from a lot of apps. Google Maps, Amazon Scraper. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is that a lot of these services have their own APIs. We're not going directly to these services. We're basically scraping data. And the scraper that I was interested in was this Airbnb scraper. So we can basically click on it and we can learn more about it, right? So here's the description. Here's the API, right? We can basically run this request. Here's the input that we can basically give it. You have your table, you have a JSON format. So here's the JSON format. This is what the request looks like. This is the input. This is the example data that you're going to be getting it back. It takes a little bit to load, and we have 60 results. So we can basically we can click on preview data to see it right away of the sample request. Or we can basically download the results in any format that we want. And so you have key value store, you have input, This is the input basically. We have a log, info, API, and then we can look at the results here by clicking on preview data. And this is what the results are depending on, what kind of request it was. And so you can try it for free, which is exactly what I did. So if you go back to my screen, you have actors that I decided to kind of play around with. So we have Airbnb scraper, Amazon, Booking, and a couple of other scrapers there as well. And so the one we're looking for is this Airbnb scraper. So I'm going to open it, and we're going to take a look at how it works. So I already ran a couple of tasks. So we're going to go out and we're going to see exactly the task that I ran. So I basically ran it earlier today, and we can basically open it and I can show you exactly what happened. So this is a task that I ran, and this is the input to Airbnb, right? We're basically creating a request to Airbnb. And so for instance, we have the location I'm just doing on Lagos, Portugal. I am doing maximum reviews. I'm leaving this blank. I am putting in a check-in date of December 5th, checkout date of December 10th. I'm looking for minimum price of 0, maximum price of 30. This is the default here. It's not entered. I can enter my own. Maybe I want the minimum price of 10, maximum price of 30. I want currency in USD, and I'm using a proxy here. Proxies from USA. This was like a default setting, I believe. I also specified 5 max listings, 50 concurrency, max concurrency of 50, limit points of 5. These were all default listings except the max listings, and I just set it to 5 just to keep it simple because I don't want the scroller to be running all day. I just wanted to run very quickly, get me the results so I can test quicker and I can have a prototype quicker. And so here is my basic request. You can view it in an editor. You can view it in JSON as well. And this is a simple request. In fact, looking at it in a JSON format is even easier because it's a little bit more concise than looking at that big screen of the regular web requests form that we just saw earlier. And so you can see right away, check in, check out, min price, max price, all of these things. And the other thing that you can do, you have a couple of settings there. Here you have the runs. And so here we have one run. It was a successful run. So we can basically click on it, and I can show you in more details how this worked. Now, right now, we're looking at the Apify to Airbnb part. When we finish this, I'm going to go back into Bubble, and I'm going to show you how I can basically grab this data and display it inside Bubble. So stay tuned for that as well. But in my opinion, Apify is a great tool. It shows a lot of promise. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. And so it's always useful to understand how to combine different tools together to get the app that you want. And so we have a log here. We have info. We have my inputs. This is the inputs that I sent. We have a data set, and then you can basically click on preview. So before we click on preview, I want to show you these things here. This is very important. Status is succeeded. Results, we got 5 results. We have a request queue. This is basically the request it was sending in order to get me the results, and it lasted 2 minutes. So this whole task took 2 minutes to complete. So we can basically click on preview data, and we're going to see 5 rows, which is 5 results. And these are real Airbnb results. And I'm going to show you inside Bubble, when we actually display this data and click on this data, you're going to see exactly that these are real results from Airbnb. They're not made up or anything like that. And so we have Lagos, which is a city in southern Portugal. And then we have the pricing. This is the pricing. We have number of guests of 2, pricing rate amount. Then we have amount formatted with the dollar sign. We have pricing in USD, US dollars. We have nightly. Instead of like monthly or something, this is the rate type. Could be a weekly rate, could be a monthly rate. And there's a lot of other fields, room type, stars, review, very important. Then we have the URL, and we're going to be displaying this URL so that the user can go directly to Airbnb and book the stay or do whatever they want from that end. All right. So this is working. The next thing that we want to do is we want to click on API, right? API is where we can basically get this data and what we're looking for. So remember, the things that I'm looking at here is concerning that specific task. Okay, it's not an API to run a different task or to run a new task or to run multiple tasks. This is the API here. This API tab is only related to this task that I run. So the way I did it is I first ran this task to get this data, and then I'm basically pulling that data in Bubble. So it's not exactly real time, which is absolutely fine for me. You can also do schedules, and I don't really need real-time data because we're sending them to Airbnb anyway. So I'm fine if I'm basically pulling this data first and then displaying it later. And so if we scroll down this API tab, you're going to see get dataset items, right? And this is the API call that we are going to be connecting from Bubble, okay? And so this is exactly what we want. So we can click on test. And so if we click on test, it's going to give us the results. So always do tests. Always make sure you're testing on the tool that's giving you the data before you go out and start integrating stuff. Because if you integrate, you're not going to know. And if you have an issue, you're not going to know if it's the integrated tool or the tool that's giving you data. So always test it first here. And so as you can see, it's working. Now we have the API endpoint. And now we are going to go out. We're going to go back to Bubble. And we are going to basically build the app. And I already built the app, so I'm going to show you exactly how I built it and exactly how the app works. So we're here back in Bubble. And this is very similar to one of my previous videos, except we're connecting to Apify instead of connecting directly to an API provider. And so I have here a call to action. I have here a button. And if we double click on this button, we can look at this workflow. And I have two workflows, right? I have a workflow that's basically responsible for dealing with a button on each of the results. It basically redirects it to Airbnb. And I have a workflow that happens once we basically, once they click on search and they basically get this data from Apify. And so this is the second type of workflow, right? This is book your stay. And what it does, it basically shows our group, right? And once it shows our group, it displays the data that we've gotten before. And so let me go back to the design and let me show you exactly what it's going to show. And so if we click on this element tree here and we basically show all the elements, I'm going to unclick this so we can basically see all the hidden elements as well. You're going to see that I have a group here and I can basically display it real quick so you can see it. This is the main group. And this group has a repeating group, okay? And the reason I have that is that because the repeating group is the one that's changing. This group includes header items that are not changing, but I want all of this to be hidden. And that is why I put all of that inside this one main group that is hidden by default. So if we click on this group and if we scroll down, you're going to see that on the properties tab, you're going to see this element is visible on page load. This is unchecked, because there's nothing to show once the page is loaded. We only want to show it after they basically enter the city and they can basically click book your stay, okay? And so the thing that you're looking for is this right here, repeating group get data. And what I have here is a type of content is get data set item. This is actually an API call that I'm going to show you in a second. And the data source is Apify get dataset items, okay? And in order for you to see that, you have to go on the plugins here. You have to click on this plugins, and you have to click on the API connector. And this is actually an optional plugin. It's a free plugin directly from Bubble that you can basically install. And so if you're looking to do any kind of API connection, this should be one of the first things that you should do. You should basically go out and install this plugin. It's a free plugin. So you're not going to have any issues by installing it right away. And so if we scroll down, you see I have this API name Apify. I have a couple of other APIs here. And if we expand this, you're going to see that I have a token. This is the token that I got from Apify that I'm sending in a header as a private key in the header. And if we expand this first call, you're going to see that I have this name, get dataset items. This is just what I called it myself. This is completely customizable. And it's basically issuing a GET request, which is basically a read-only request, basically trying to get the data on this API. And if we go back to Apify, you're going to see exactly which API it is. So if we go back here, you're going to see this call, this GET dataset items. This is what I'm looking for. And this is exactly what I basically took here and I pasted it inside Bubble. And so if we scroll down, you're going to see this is the GET request. We want JSON, and you always want to do reinitialize call. So if we click on that, you're gonna basically get data back. You're gonna get fields, okay? It's not gonna show you all the results. What it's basically showing you is the types, and it's basically mapping it. So we have URL is text, stars is number. So you wanna kind of quickly double check. Although I do realize that Bubble is pretty good with connecting data, right? So we have an address here, which is text. You can also make a geographical address if you want to display maps, which is probably a good idea if you want to do that. I'm just, for simplicity's sake, I'm just keeping it as a text, room type text. So it does a pretty good, it does a pretty good estimation of what each of these datas are, mapping them to a certain data type. So you want to click on save. And now Bubble knows exactly what kind of data to expect. And what that means is that before you can even issue that call, you can already start to kind of telling Bubble how you want that data to be used, right? So if I go back to design, I have this get data set item, which is the response. And this is exactly what the type of content. We already told Bubble what it is. So Bubble knows. So once we configure, for instance, these fields here, name is this, we can basically click on get data set item, and then we can also say name, right? It says name, and we can say, we already have that configured. So we're going to say name, get data set name, right? This is name. And the same thing here, number of guests, we have that configured, get data set item, and then we're going to go here. We're going to go here, number of guests. And that's all you have to do. The same thing for the address, price per night, all the fields that you're getting from Airbnb, all the stuff that Airbnb is giving you. Now, if we move this, if we basically go in here, you're going to see a book it column, right? And this is where we're going to be redirecting to Airbnb. And as I'm going to show you in a second, this is actually redirecting to a real Airbnb URL, because this is what we got, and this is what Apify got from Airbnb. It knows the URL. And so if we double click on this, you see that it says book it, right? And that book it is going to be, if we go to the start and edit workflow, it says open external website. And then you have this again, get dataset items URL, because that is what Bubble is giving us. So if we, that is what Apify is giving us. So if we go back to my task and I basically click on test, I'm going to see URL here, right? I'm going to see a URL. You see that has the URL. And this is what Bubble is basically saving it as its own fields. And that is exactly what we're doing here. We're using URL. So whatever fields you see in this API response, this is what Bubble is going to have access to. So this is amazing, because before you basically had to parse it yourself. You had to basically parse it. You needed the JSON parser to parse all this data, create data structure in a specific programming language that you're probably using, maybe Python or PHP or JavaScript. And then you can basically access these fields. But the beautiful thing about Bubble is it's all doing that automatically. And me personally, I think that's an awesome thing. And so this is that second workflow. We already talked about this workflow. This is the second workflow. And so when you click on that button on each row, that book it button, it's going to open an external link, and you're basically going to be on Airbnb's detail page. So let me show. So if I click on preview, and let's say I type Lagos, I say book your stay, it basically gets the data gets those 5 results from Apify. And then if I click on book it, it's going to redirect me to Airbnb, to that specific listing, right? It's not going to redirect me to a random listing. And this is in Lago, Portugal. So if I go back and I show you another listing, just to explain to you. So if I do Lagos, I basically get those listings again. It says rent a pitch for your own tent under the trees. It's two guests. So if I click on book it, you're going to see rent a pitch, etc., etc. And so there's a lot of other fields. So in the future, if you want to build a more full-featured app, you can use some of these other fields. You can create your own parser in Apify, or you get those fields that it's giving you. You can take care of that. So there's a lot of things that you can do, and this is why I like Apify, is that it allows you to get data that's hard to get, maybe because you don't have access to the API, or maybe because the API is very complicated, or maybe it doesn't even have an API. Maybe the data you're trying to get doesn't even have an API service. You will be able to do it with Apify. And so this is what I have so far. Obviously, this is just the beginning. I am looking to basically keep building this app. I have a lot of plans for this app, but that is how you basically create a simple app in Bubble to Apify in order to get data that would be otherwise difficult to get. And obviously, if it already has an API, just like in one of my previous videos, you can basically use the API and use that. But if it doesn't, you can use a tool like Apify to basically get you the data that you need. All right, guys, so this is a simple overview of how to use Bubble and how to get data when you don't want to use an API, or when it's difficult to use an API, or when you want to maybe, get some experience with a new tool like Apify or another tool. And so I really hope you've gotten value in this video. I will be doing a lot more Bubble videos in the future. So if you're interested in learning about Bubble, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, I'm going to be making a lot more content with these no-code tools, including Bubble. I'm also going to be making content with Glide. So if you want to see those future videos, definitely subscribe on this channel. And if you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button. Leave a comment below. That really helps me out. This is a brand new channel, and every little bit helps. So definitely smash the like button. Let me know if you gotten value from this video in the comment area below, and I'm going to be making a lot more videos in the future. So that is all I have for you guys for today. Really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.